Hey guys, hey everybody, it's Larry Lawson, and you're on the air with Indian River Hauntings with myself and my partner over there in County Durham, England, Chris Huff. Say hi, Chris.
Hi, Chris.
And I'm down here in beautiful Vero Beach, Florida, as we got another tropical system about to hit us this week, and it's going to be a
Wait,
little
what?
one, thank goodness. Yeah, we got another tropical storm coming in, Ryan, and that's, folks, that's my son Ryan, who's engineering this whole production out of his little studio in Orlando, Florida. So say hello, Ryan.
Hello, Ryan.
Hello, Ryan.
Hello, Ryan. Um, yep, we're on the air. Thanks everybody for joining us again. We're having a great time. Glad you're joining us. And if you're out there tonight, let us know you're listening. Give us a hello. Give us a howdy. Give us a shut the heck up. Whatever you want to say, but let us know that you're listening. Ask questions. We got a lot of cool things to talk about tonight. We'd love to hear from all of you. Want to make a couple of shout outs and then let you know what we're doing on the Indian River haunting side. Of course, I always want to say hello to my friends Joe and Zach at the Driftwood Resort in Vero Beach, Florida, where we do some of our historical ghost tours. Those are two great guys, and the Driftwood Resort's a great place to go. The Marsh Landing Restaurant in Fellsmere, Florida, our base of operations in Fellsmere for a lot of our work, and one crazy haunted city, I might add. That between that, the old school, and some of the other buildings there, Fellsmere, Florida. We do a lot of events out there, and it's crazy haunted. I want to say hi to Damien Freddy, our mutual friend in York, the Shambles to be exact, York, England. One of the best storytellers you'll find in that part of England when it comes to ghost stories. So if you're ever there, go to the Golden Fleece and see our friend Damien Freddy for some great stories. Want to say hi to War Party Paranormal and Scotty Burns, our dear friends down in West Palm Beach, Florida. Rob Robinson, and we call him the Legend Tripper. And I don't know, Chris, if I've ever talked to you about him, but he's our local Bigfoot guy.
All right. Now we're
So
going to have a show on that at some
we're
stage.
going we're going to have to do that. Want to say hi to Nicole and everybody at the Mel Fisher Treasure Museum, which we were going to do an investigation at before the last hurricane hit and knocked us out. And our friends at Indian River Historical Society that we work very closely with, our local historical society. And of course, Doodlebug Dowsing. We're going to talk about dowsing rods tonight, and our dear friends Nikki Shreves and Sherry Cox, who own Doodlebug Dowsing and supply all of our dowsing rods. If you're ever in the market for dowsing rods, go to Doodlebug Dowsing, and I'm going to really quick here. There we go. Their email is ba-doom, ba-doom, ba-doom. Their website is doodlebugdowsing.com, and their email is doodlebugdowsing@gmail.com. So if you're in the market for dowsing rods, especially after we chat with them about them tonight, that's the place to go. They ship anywhere. Um, Also wanted to mention that we've got some great things going on here. We got our Halloween's coming up. We've got some of our historical tours. And when I say historical ghost tour, folks, we talk about history because you can't, and Chris, I think you'll agree with me, you cannot be involved in the world of paranormal research and investigation without embracing and loving history. So we spend a lot of time on our events talking about history. So we've got Arcadia down near Riddle Airfield.
Yes,
Where
I
the
know it. Yes.
Fourth British Flying Training School was here in Florida. We're doing on the 5th of October, we're doing dinner and a ghost hunt there. We're doing dinner and a ghost hunt the 21st of September in Fellsmere, and again on the 26th of October, and a special dinner and ghost hunt at the Sexton Tripson property, which is a very historical site here in Indian River County, Florida. So, again, go to our website. That's how you find out what we're doing, www.indianriverhauntings.com. And what we do, our vision is to teach you history and teach you what this world of paranormal research and investigation is really about. So, and I know you've got at least one shout out you want to give, but hopefully a couple others. Chris, who do you want to say hi to?
Well, only one really, because the only one I know is going to be listening is Deborah. So hello, Deborah, and don't worry, I've had a word with Larry, and he knows that when he's up in Orlando, he wants you to go. He wants you to come along with him and do an investigation.
Yeah,
Uh,
Deb. So, yeah, go ahead. I'm
my
sorry.
my friend David down in North Witham says he's got some time off and he might be here. So if David's there, glad you're with us, David. And that's it,
Yeah.
because it's gone 12 o'clock at night here, and everyone's gone to beddy bays.
Well, hopefully they'll listen tomorrow. But I want to make mention too. You and I are going to team up, and we're working on putting this together right now. We're taking folks from the states here over to your neck of the woods in just about a year, year and a half tops, and we're going to come over and see what it's like to do paranormal investigation
Oh
research.
my God, the
Jolly old
Yanks are
England.
coming.
The Yanks are coming, and
Oh my God.
yeah. So, folks, if this is something you're interested in, we are setting this up to take a group of people over there to really, I mean, not just do a TV thing. We're going over there to really show you what it's like to speak to and touch the other side in jolly
And
old England.
also
Or,
have a little look at the archaeology and history.
well,
Because
we can't do it without that. Yeah.
when does it start over there in Florida?
Oh, shoot. 100 years is old to us. You know
Yeah,
what's
over here you're talking 3000 BC.
Yeah. Well, I got to say, most of Florida is if it's 100 years old, it's old to us. But the ironic part about it is we have St. Augustine, which is the oldest city in the North American in the American United States, I should say, so back in the 1500s. So while we're a new state, we did have St. Augustine. But yeah, you're either way, it's not near what jolly old England is, right?
No, it's you're saying 100 years is old. Our house is 100 years old.
I know. I know. When we were over there, Ryan and I
Actually,
were
it's
over there.
actually it's 120 years old. But
Your house?
yeah, that's
Oh
modern.
wow. Yeah, we stayed in Ryan. You and I remember the place we stayed in London, uh, Paige's friend's house.
Yeah.
That was built what about 1919? That was about 100 years old
Yeah,
there too.
Yeah.
So that was, and that was right in the middle of London in the south side, I think. So Paige, if you're listening, let me know if I got that right. Excuse me. But at any rate, we're back tonight, talks. We're back to talk about everything paranormal. Um, just we're going to talk and go in whatever direction it leads us. So when you hear stuff, I do want to talk some about equipment tonight. When you hear things, jump on, ask us questions, let us know what you think, and give us your opinions. And also, you can get a hold of us, get a hold of me at www. I'm sorry, Ghost Guy 59. Don't forget the W. I'm giving you my email, ghostguy59 at gmail.com. You can always get a hold of me and ask me questions there, and we'll bring them up next week on the air also. So anyway, old buddy, what's the weather like there in County Durham right now?
wet.
Wet. You're
It's
always
always wet. And if it's
now.
not wet, it's windy. And if it's not windy, it's cold.
Now, how far south are you from the border with Scotland, roughly miles wise?
Depends which way you go. If you go directly north, it's about 80 miles.
Okay,
If you go over towards Carlisle, it's about 60 miles
gotcha. So you're
because
you're way up there.
the border wibbles up. But
Mm.
we're 20 miles down from Hadrian's Wall.
Oh, and when we take our crew from the states there, Hadrian's Wall, I do believe is
You've got to come and see Hadrian's Wall, at least one of the places.
so,
You've got to see it.
folks.
It's worth it.
Folks, if you're listening or you listen to the show later, keep an ear out and your eyes open for when we do this. This is going to be something that will be the trip of a lifetime if your passion is the world of paranormal research, investigation, history. It's going to be terrific.
It's going
That's
to be
what
different.
it's
That's the word for it. It's going to be different because you'll see everything from prehistory right the way through to mid 20th century,
mhm.
and they're all haunted.
Yeah, it's going to be great. But we'll get on that later. I kind of
And
wanted to. Go
talking
ahead.
of hauntings, are you going to
Yes.
tell us about what happened on your recent investigation?
Yeah, this is kind of cool. I wanted to talk about this a little bit tonight because I don't know how many folks out there have uh, started an investigation, maybe didn't expect much. It was a small location like this was, but it turned out to be pretty blasted compelling. What it was is last Saturday, we opened up our historical ghost walking tour in Sebastian, Florida. And Sebastian is an old fishing town. It was first had people there in the 1870s, but it was in the 1880s, like everything else around here, that it started to pick up. And it was a fishing village. It was incorporated in 1924. But prior to that, there was a group of women who created the Sebastian Women's Club. And in 1927, they built built a building just for the Sebastian's Women's Club, and it was named after a lady who was the first president, but she was killed in a car wreck.
That
Um,
must have been a very early exponent of driving cars.
well, by 24, US one. Now, if you're not familiar with US one, it's the main. It's a big highway that goes from Key
Right.
West all the way to Maine, and it came through the Sebastian area about 26,
Right.
1906.
So
So,
it's later than I thought.
oh
I
yeah,
thought you were still
yeah.
talking sort of 1880s,
No,
1890s.
no, no. We're in the 1920s now.
Right.
This woman died. Her name was Sarah Wentworth Rose. She was married to a Dr. David Rose, and they had a head-on crash and not too far south of there, and she died. And that's going to be an important part of the story in a minute. And so they named the building after her. And her pictures are in there. And the building, with the exception of the adding on of a restroom and a kitchen, it's pretty much the same way it was built in 27. We based our tour out of that place, and then talking to the folks that run the center, they'd had some strange things in there: footsteps, mists, um, hearing of things that really made them feel that they were not alone. So when we agreed to start the tours there, we also said, well, we'd like to investigate it. So I took a small team in. We did the tour Saturday night. This last Saturday night, the September 7th, actually. And then we conducted an investigation, did a little bit differently than we normally do it. As you and I have discussed, I will usually have a team of about 10 investigators, and we'll split up into little groups and do sections here and sections there of the venue. But this place was one room, basically, with an added-on kitchen. So we had people assigned to watch different pieces of equipment, and I'd like to talk a little bit about equipment tonight, maybe a little bit later. And they were assigned to watch it, and we just did we used our SLS camera, we used dowsing rods as well as EMF detectors, and we just did a giant, almost like a giant EVP session, using the different pieces of equipment. We didn't see the Holy Grail. We didn't see somebody appear before us, but probably one of the most compelling times we've used dowsing rods. My lead investigator that night was Michael Spanky Maxwell, and they call him Spanky. He's a retired firefighter, and he got the nickname Spanky with the fire service. And I got this all on videotape too. The answers that came were so crisp and clear with the rods, with everybody watching it. And we've got corroborating evidence with the EMF detectors going off at the same time, which we thought was pretty compelling. And what the story is that this Sarah Wentworth Rose died in this car wreck, and within, I think, 3 months later, Dr. Rose married another woman, Elizabeth. We ended up talking to both of them inside
Right.
there. I mean,
Did they get
when I
on at
say
all?
no, they do not, and they made
Oh,
it very
right. I
clear.
thought, yeah,
What
I got that vibe from you.
Well, what was interesting was when you talk to the historian, Teddy Hughes, she said, "Oh no, they were friends." Well, the Rods made it very clear that they didn't like each other, but they also made it clear that at least Elizabeth was there and not leaving. Not that she couldn't leave, but she just wasn't going to leave. It was
Yeah.
just really compelling, Chris, because you know and I'm sure you've had it, and other people out there have had it, investigations. You might get a little blip on your EMF detector, whatever type you're using, or you get a little bit of a knock, and it's interesting, but not conclusive. Well, darn it, at one point we did that typical 2 bits and a dollar, dump, 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 and dang, out of nowhere, boom, came a knock to end it. Very succinct, very right after it was said. We asked questions on the rods, and the rods for us, normally it's, if the answer is yes, they cross. If the answer is no, they spread apart. Very crisp, very quickly. It wasn't like this tiny little movements. It was boom, boom. And the like I said, the EMF detectors, millimeters in particular, as well as K2s, would go off. It just was very, very it gave you pause. And you felt it. You felt it in the place too. And I think that's one thing that and you're going to find this strange coming from me, the old cop. But sometimes that gut feeling you have, that sense that you have, we were getting it that night. All of us were just feeling it. It was quite an investigation, but we didn't see anything like the body I saw or the figure I saw a couple weeks earlier at the Marsh Landing. But they were there, man. They were really there.
Was Evan picking up on anything?
Evan wasn't there that night.
Right.
He'd had his black belt testing earlier that day, and I might say, folks out there, Evan earned his 3rd-degree black belt in karate. I was very proud of him, but he ended up having to, help pick up the venue afterwards, so he was not able to attend that night, which was disappointing. Would have loved
no
to have.
mediums there at all on this one.
We had no mediums at all, which, in a sense, was good. I mean, I would have rather had one there. Don't misunderstand me. But the mere fact that we didn't have anybody that was particularly sensitive there, and we were still getting this, the indications that we did were really something. And when and at the very end of it, and I had the whole thing on videotape. Did you guys like each other? Boom, the crosses.
No, yeah.
No, we did not. We did not like each other.
I'm really picking up on that very much. It's very strong coming from you. I take it you're going back to this place.
Oh, well, we have to. And I'm going to tell you why. And this is something that gets forgotten quite frequently in investigations, particularly the TV stuff. Although there's one exception. I'm going to mention that in just a second. You can't go to a place and investigate it, regardless of the information that the venue host has. You can't go there and come away with a definitive conclusion after 1 3 4-hour investigation.
No,
you
nothing.
cannot. You can get indications something's there. You might pick up a name, but until you go back, it's like a police investigation. You got to go back and be meticulous and go through it. And then pull out the evidence, and that's how you put the pieces of the puzzle together. So the answer to your question is yes, we're going to be going back because we need to find out more. And I'll give you a little hint. There was some question as to whether the accident was an accident, if you get my drift.
Yeah.
One of the things that we found quite interesting was, of course, the marriage 3 months after, but those things happened, especially back in those days. So you can't look at that as a conclusive piece of evidence. But after the accident, the 2 people in the other car were taken to the hospital down in Vero, which is about 15 miles south. It's where I live. They rushed them down there. But Dr. Rose took his wife back home. Now, you can argue he's a doctor. He knows what's best for his wife. But if she was badly enough injured where she died, perhaps she needed...
That might be good questions to ask, because you might get some really serious results from that.
We did, and the entity identifying as Elizabeth says no, which she would have a stake in this game. No, there was no particular reason why he did that. He didn't do it for any nefarious reasons.
Mm-hmm.
But then it would turn around, and I asked another specific question: was it an accident? And the rods went poof, spread apart, saying no. So
there is one thing which has just sort of been whispered to me, and it's a question for you to ask next time. Okay. Did the doctor know this Elizabeth before his wife was dead?
Oh, we asked that question.
That's what just came through to me.
Well, we asked that question
because I think that the two were having an affair. Collusions.
Well, they were.
Yeah, that's what I've been told here.
She said that. Yeah, she said that they were having an affair prior to it. So that's why the question came up, was the accident. Now, folks, if you're listening, I'm not sitting here suggesting that I have conclusive evidence of a murder. That's not what I'm saying. What I am saying is
it was a murder.
What I'm saying is this begs for further investigation. And that's one thing. I'm going to go off on a little side note here. One of the things that I have come to really want to do is look at a homicide, conduct an investigation as a law enforcement officer, but also do a parallel investigation with the paranormal. Exactly. We're actually assisting a group up in the Brevard County, which is the county just north of us, with a firefighter who disappeared, and I don't really have time to go into all of that, but
Is it
we
a forested area at all?
where she disappeared.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is, quite frankly.
Oh dear. Yes. Well, that brings us on to another topic then, doesn't it? The
Yeah.
the 411 disappearances and Bigfoot and UFO and everything else. A whole can of worms.
Yeah, so that we're going to save that one for the next time because that'll keep us.
Absolutely. I mean, this is another one where I'm very interested. So,
Yeah, but yeah, this was in a forested area, and there's a lot more to the story. But we've helped the group up there a bit. I mean, we haven't done a lot, but that's something that I'm really compelled to do is conduct those kinds of parallel investigations. The one thing about being a cop, and the one bit of evolvement, if you will, that I've done is I've come to open my mind to understand there really is more to this world than just what's black and white.
very much more.
And I think that's what makes cops good cops that have that mindset are good paranormal investigators, because we're not confining ourselves to just the obvious. You know what I mean? So
hmm
anyway.
You wait until Evan starts spreading his wings properly, and you're going to have your eyes well and truly opened.
Oh, I'm sure. Speaking of having my eyes truly open, dragon's milk. You always bring up your stuff in England. I'm bringing up this stuff brewed in my neck of the woods up in Holland, Ohio. Dragon's milk. Only
Disgusting.
one of those a night. Yeah.
Make you go blind.
I guess. Whoa. Yeah, baby. Anyway, so
Now,
that was my investigation.
one thing I do want to ask you.
Yeah.
Have you done anything in the last, I don't know, not that long ago, of the antebellum period? I'm sort of talking
No.
what we'd call mid to late Victorian. So
Yeah.
anything up to about the 1870s.
No, because that's not here in Florida.
Because
In 18
you've just had a woman walk through in what I consider antebellum costume.
Now, if you get up to the northern part of Florida, where there were some plantations, got to understand something. Florida was a possession of Spain until 1820.
Right.
Okay. It didn't become a territory until after 1820. It didn't become a state till 1845. And it really wasn't until the 1880s that the state began to grow. So you're kind of in that era, but Florida was just becoming a place. You got to understand, this place is hot. It was marshy. A lot of it
hmm
was underwater, except when you get to Orlando and above, it's a little bit older up there. But down where we're at, the late 1880s is when things started to come alive here. So the antebellum period really had bypassed us down here. Now we didn't.
This woman was so clear,
Well,
really so clear. I
we
mean,
did.
I can describe it so clear. I can describe the costume to you completely. It's sort of like a
Go
black
ahead.
leather, a black velvet
Leather.
riding jacket,
Oh,
leather.
right.
No,
Okay.
black velvet riding jacket, and she had an antebellum flowing skirt coming out from it, which was a sort
A
of
riding jacket. Huh?
maroony red and black in almost like stripes, but layers.
July 20th, we had just gotten back. We're just back from England. We had a group up north of us in Melbourne request us to come in, and I'm not allowed to go into a lot of detail as our agreement with them. Um, we did an investigation up there, and that house is probably the closest thing recently that we've done
Right.
to anything. It was built in the 1890s, I believe.
It could be. I mean, if she dressed old rather than modern fashion, um, she's not that old. She's only 45, 50s at most. Um, blondie auburn hair, not blonde, not brown. It's sort of that in between color.
Hmm.
In ringlets, which makes you think
Ringlet.
antebellum.
Yeah, let me check into that. I think that's going to be a little bit older than what we've done lately. Like I said, it's an old state, but it's a new state.
Yeah.
If that makes sense. We had a lot of Native Americans down here back several couple thousand years, but no real modernization till the 18 really to I mean you had Jacksonville and Tampa and Key West all had ports, Miami, but the middle part of Florida, just nobody lived here. It was just too,
It was a swamp, a gator-filled
basically,
swamp,
yeah, yeah.
and
So
it still is in parts. I've heard.
yeah, it's an interesting state. This place is, and it's amazing. People don't really realize that even though our history is new, we've got so much of it here. I mean, I could go. I talk about it on our tours all the time. I won't bore everybody with it now,
Yes.
but I mean, the people don't realize that Florida was one of the original cattle states in the country.
Not
So,
Texas.
well, Texas was, but Florida was one of the earliest and one of the biggest and still
Right.
is. Florida still produces just about more cattle than anybody in the
It, it,
country.
I mean, I always think Florida is this sort of marshy, waterlogged.
It is in many
You know,
places. It is.
the only thing you could raise there would be water buffalo.
No water buffalo,
No water buffalo.
but
Anyway,
big gators. Yeah,
getting back to your building and Elizabeth and Sarah.
right, right.
Um, what's the next course of action for this if you're going back?
Well, I'm probably going to bring in some different folks to get a different
Yeah.
feel for it, because I've got about 13 investigators total on my crew. So I'll probably cycle some other folks in there, see what they have, um, and just continue to ask questions. It's not a place that we can get real too creative. There's just not enough room, and it's not big enough to get creative with different ideas. We'll probably come up with some more experiments.
Mm-hmm.
Um, to see what else we can ferret out. But the venue itself's not that big. But the course of action will maybe to change out the folks and maybe come up with a couple of experiments. But the dowsing rods, it's funny because I don't see many teams using them,
No.
and I was not a believer in them myself until it was actually first time I saw them in use was in Gettysburg.
Mm-hmm.
And I was pretty amazed with it. And you know who used them that really amazed me? Evan.
Yeah.
It was so funny. He was I don't know. He was this is 13. Oh gosh, so he must have been about 10, 12 years old at the time, and he's holding the rods and they're moving for him. And then he suddenly asks, "Is there anybody here from Florida?" And the rods just turned right around and pointed right at him. It was really an interesting time. But that also got him interested in the rods. And we have used them very successfully on investigations. And his theory is that the other side, people have been using those things for finding water and energy for years.
Mm-hmm.
I had a guy on a tour one time who was an electrician, says he still uses them to find wires and walls.
Absolutely. Yeah.
But Evan's take on it is the other side uses their energy to move them, and sometimes will even go through you to move them with use some of your energy. I remember one time he did about a 20-30 minute investigate or session with the rods, and literally um, felt passed out afterwards. He was so completely drained from it. But rods, I think, can be very effective, especially if you videotape. Folks, little hint on investigations. If you don't document it, it didn't happen.
Yep.
So we videotape everything, we audio tape what we can't videotape, but somehow you've got to document it. And we've had some really, really interesting stuff happen with rods. So that's one reason why I talked about doodlebug dowsing a little while ago. They make great rods, and we use them in all our investigations and have had tons of luck with them. Now, I say that they don't work at all for me.
No, exactly the same. I've
Yeah,
never had any success.
yeah,
They
they
just
don't.
don't work.
But if
Pretty
you would
much
have,
EMF meters don't work for me.
oh,
I've had three in what I've had EMF meters for about 15 years now.
uh-huh.
It's worked on 3 occasions.
Well, I know you like your PS11. PS.
That's more for
Does it?
show.
Oh,
That's more
really?
for it's more for showing people than
Okay.
anything else.
Yeah.
Uh, it, I prefer to just walk around and take EVPs.
Yeah, and that's
Just
what you
me,
do.
just a recorder. But that's just my way of doing things. It's where I'm most comfortable.
Hey, Ryan, is anybody on with us right now?
Yes.
Okay. Hey, if you're out there, is Ike out there by any chance?
Ike would be.
IDK Paranormal.
Yes.
Ike, how you doing, brother? Let me tell you something, folks. quick shout out to my buddy Ike. He's in New Mexico, chief of police out there. Uh, really
I
outstanding.
better start behaving myself, hadn't I?
Yeah, you better.
All
Well, you
these
got two
bloody
cops
cops
in.
around.
That's right. Well, go to his show, IDK Paranormal. He's done, I think, 5 episodes on his life as a cop and the paranormal stuff he has happen out in the Southwest, which is really cool because it differs a little bit from what we have in Florida. But IDK Paranormal, guys, on YouTube, go to Ike's channel. But Ike, want to hear from you, buddy. If you're off duty and you're able to type anything in there, tell me the type of equipment you like to use the best, because I want to talk a little bit about equipment now. I've been jabbing about the divining rods. And anybody else that's out there, if anybody else out there listening, Ryan says we've got folks out there. Tell us what you like to use. Send a text to Ryan. He'll let us know what it is you like to use. Brought some stuff. I don't know. You want me to show some of the stuff I brought in here, there, Christopher? See what you think.
No, not interested at all. But you're going to do it anyway. So go on.
Okay, good point. Good point. Good point. Well, you said, yeah, you like this little guy here, the millimeter.
I
You did
actually,
like this.
I was amazed that you got a reading on that when I was around.
Yeah,
I'm amazed.
quick story. Chris and Ryan and I were in RAF Elvington. It was a bomber base outside of York. Right, York, yeah. And they flew an aircraft called it was first an RAF base, and then they were turned over to Free French bomber squadrons flying with the Royal Air Force. They flew a bomber called a Halifax, and it had it was your typical buildings there. And we were in the watchtower, Chris.
We call it the watch office, and the Americans call it the control tower.
Okay, and we were in there and had this thing going. The cool thing about the millimeter, and it's probably one of my favorite tools, is it gives you a very accurate reading of milligauss, which is the unit of measurement for EMFs. Also gives you temperatures. Also, it's got this little cool thing too. It's a REM pod, and I got a regular REM pod here. Some of you may have seen before. And what it does is it puts out a bubble of energy, and if anything breaks that bubble, the sounds go off. And I'm going to turn this guy on here, if it comes on for me. Oh, the batteries may be drained on this bad boy. Man, no, there we go. There we go. There we go. There we go. So what happened was we had the millimeter going, and Chris asked, did you ask if anybody was here, right?
It started off with me saying, I could feel someone on my left side.
Okay.
But I couldn't actually see them, and I just asked you to come near it.
Right.
And you got a 4.2 or a 4.7.
Yeah, and it was. I was getting 00. I don't know if you folks can see it there in this great piece of equipment, the millimeter. It was dead. It was dead, and then, excuse the pun there. And then suddenly it shot up to 4.2 or something like that. Ryan was standing right next to me when it happened, and it went away. And then you asked again if somebody was there.
Then afterwards, I asked, "Can you tell us what your name is?" And then it shot up to 4 point something again.
Yeah. So I mean, then went right. It took off. Now we understand we had gone through there with this device, and we were getting no readings. There was nothing in the room prior to us asking questions that was causing the EMF to register at all. We asked the 2 questions, and
bearing in mind, even though you were walking around with this registering nothing.
Correct.
The whole building is live with electricity. George Formby was blasting out,
that's true.
Whatever he was blasting out from the tannoy, and then there was a commentary going off in the.
It was all the stuff
in the room. Yeah, so it was all going off, but there was no readings whatsoever going off, and it only went off when I said, "There's somebody here," off, and then asked, "What is your name?" Off again. It was deliberately in response.
Yeah. So that was a pretty cool, and I think you became a little bit believer in the millimeter when that happened, because it was pretty cool. We like using it because it's a great multi-tool. You got temperature, you got EMF, and you've also got the REM pod, which I've now turned off so it doesn't interrupt this. This is the this little guy right here is the temperature probe, but it works really well. It's a little bit better than the old K2 meter and does not go off as easily with phones and stuff. It's usually pretty shielded from cell phones, although it's always good to have your cell phones on airplane mode whenever you're doing. If
do
not
have
off
a
completely.
comment from your friend Ike.
Yeah, yeah.
He says he agrees with Chris. A good quality digital recorder is my favorite. Millimeter and other EMF devices are good as well. I have a pair of old brass rods that work amazingly. Also, a good quality video
Dowsing
camera
rods.
is 100% a must.
What
Now
kind of
that,
camera?
sorry,
Go ahead.
no, I was just going to say he says old brass rods.
Hmm.
Now, what rods are you using?
Ours are brass.
So, is it worth trying? Does it work with bronze rods, brass
It,
rods, iron rods, steel rods, copper rods?
Evan uses rod. You know what Evan uses? He's got a pair that collapse. You know why? Because they're basically antennas. They're aluminum antennas
Hmm.
that are fashioned, and that way he can collapse them and carry them in his pocket, and they work as well as the brass rods.
So,
So,
this is an experiment that needs doing.
good point. Good point. So, Ike, have you used, and if you could answer this, I know you said you have brass rods. Have you ever used any other kind? Because most of our rods, our regular rods are brass, but Evan likes to use his collapsible ones, and both the collapsible, they're like aluminum antennas that you can, telescoping. Um, Whatever he uses works for him.
Didn't
But
people used to use wood for the
Yeah,
rods
that's
as
how it
well?
started. There used to be a kind of, Ryan, how you see it in the old days. It was a like a branch that broke off to a Y, and they would
that's right.
hold the.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was originally how they
I,
found
I
water.
was I was just wondering if you used iron or steel, something which is ferrous, and you know how you're talking about magnetic fields, whether
Hmm.
you're going to get an interesting response if you're using something which is influenced by magnetic fields.
I'll put my. You know what? Spanky is my experiments guy. I think I'm going to put him on this
Yeah,
actually because he's really good with rods himself.
right. Any sort of type of rods, just give them a try. And unfortunately, it comes back down to your analogy of fishing every time. Sometimes it's not going to work anyway. So you've
Yeah,
just got to keep all the time.
that's what people forget. They think that, man, you're just going to go out, and the second you demand this spirit to come forward, it's going
Oh,
to, and
absolutely.
it's just
Yeah.
not the way it works. I mean, it's just not the way it works.
Tell me about it because they seem to expect that it gets around that I'm a medium and people suddenly expect me to become a
I
necromancer.
thought you were large,
No, I'm
maybe
an
an
extra
extra large.
large old chap,
You're next.
double
Okay,
extra
okay.
large, if not triple extra large, and
Sorry, little humor.
gargantuan even. Um, but they expect that you can do necromancy and summon up things just to appear and amuse them, and it doesn't work that way.
Well, see, and that when people start summoning,
Oh well,
that's the whole. That's another maybe another subject for a different day. That's trouble. Talk to who's there, but don't be summoning. I'm kind of funny about that. Um, so here's another cool piece of equipment. I don't know if I ever talked to you about this, but this is an EDI Plus. It's made by a group called Centex Paranormal.
no, you didn't
And
bring that one with you.
well, I had to be a little bit choosy, and this is still my favorite one right here. This Melmeter. Interesting story about the Melmeter too. It was designed by an electrical engineer who, unfortunately, had suffered the death of his daughter, and he felt that she was trying to reach him, and that's why he created this great piece of equipment. Great folks too. Folks that make the Melmeter. Terrific folks. Love working with them. But this is also a cool thing. It's the EDI, and the original one just did. Uh, it was an EMF detector and it was a vibration. See the vibration, great for footsteps and whatnot. But this latest one, EDI Plus, it also measures temperature, EMF, vibration, humidity, and barometric pressure. But the best part about it is it's got a spot on the top that you put an SD card in, and you'll leave it once. This is something you would leave in a spot for the entire investigation, and then afterwards, after you hit record, you pull out the SD card and you put it into the computer that has a graphing system in there, and it shows you the entire time any changes in any of this, which really heads down to where I want to go with this field of looking for corroborating evidence. So you can actually, if you get a hit on a piece of equipment or something happens, and at the same time you're getting a drop in pressure, a rise in humidity, whatever, this little baby graphs it for you, and you've actually got hard evidence. So I kind of like this. Did you ever hear about this one? Are you familiar with the EEI?
It's way out of my price range.
No, not really. It's not too bad. I mean, it's all of it's expensive. Maybe to the point of being overpriced in some ways. But
My
this
price range is about five what you'd say $5.
well,
Anything over that, I just can't go there.
well, you know what, Chris, you got a point because the old days. Remember the old days? Glass of water and a mercury thermometer. That's how you told whether or not it was you got a cold spot. Compass was your only EMF detector, right? And you know what? There's a lot to be said to the fact that the best tool is your own senses,
It is indeed.
especially
Well,
especially somebody
you
like
know
you.
that that's where I'd go anyway. So,
Yeah,
I mean, so
absolutely.
saying, I mean, I've always decried laser thermometers because people seem to just point them at somewhere and say, "Oh, look, there's a temperature change," and somebody's saying there's a cold spot beside me, and somebody's pointing this laser thermometer and saying, "Well, I'm not getting any change." Well, it needs a surface to reflect back off.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
all you're measuring is the temperature of the wall or the radiator or the window or
It
whatever.
doesn't catch anything in
Now,
between. You're right.
now, if you actually have a thin aluminium sheet
Oh, what?
on a thin, aluminium foil,
Oh, aluminum. Okay.
aluminium, yes, exactly. I'm going to have to teach you English, old bean. Aluminium, a thin sort of disc, maybe 3 or 4 inches across of aluminium foil on an antenna, and you can put that to wherever you're saying this cold spot is or the warm spot, and then measure the temperature and see if it changes.
Okay.
I've done it. It works.
Okay. That's an
So
interesting.
before then, I wasn't very impressed with the um, the laser temperature, except on one occasion,
Hmm.
and that was a chapel up here in County Durham where uh, we got called in. Me and a couple of friends got called in because things were happening, and they got a bit frightened by it. And somebody said, "There's a cold spot here." And it was right by a door. And I was thinking, yeah, okay, it's right by a door. You're going to get a cold spot. So I measured the paving slab because it was all slab floors. Sorry, stone floors.
Hmm.
Um, and it measured a couple of degrees colder than the room. And I thought, yeah, the floor is just this. And then all of a sudden, the temperature just started dropping and it went down by 5 degrees.
Hmm.
And then it came up to normal and just stayed at normal. And then somebody said, "Oh, the cold spot's now moved across the aisle, and it's over here." So it went across, and that was then colder. But I was measuring on the stone flags, and it worked. And I was really, really shocked that this was working so well.
Now, the standard theory behind temperature drops was the entity was trying to draw energy from the air, and that's what dropped the temperature. Do you agree with that theory?
I honestly couldn't give an opinion.
Okay.
I really, really don't know, because yeah, that would work that way. How about warm spots?
Well, as I'm saying that, I'm recognizing that too because there have been times where warm spots suddenly appeared.
But
So yeah.
I can give you an example of that
Okay.
from personal experience. And somewhere I want you to come and see RAF Usworth, the Northeast Aircraft Museum,
Hmm.
up in Sunderland, 20 miles from me. And I've seen 3 apparitions there
Really?
and heard a male and female disembodied conversation going on in an empty hangar, which stopped as soon as I entered it.
Wow. Now,
And
just
now we're walking around this place. I got to one end of the hangar and I was looking at a helicopter or something, one of their exhibits. And I was thinking, my word, this is warm. And I was looking everywhere above me for one of these, space heater type things, blasting hot air out. And I couldn't see
right.
anything. I actually had to go and ask at the desk, have you got heating in here? And they've got no heating. But this was so hot, I had to move.
Hmm. Wow. That's and you do the same thing with cold spots. The first thing you look for is a
The
a,
first thing
a
you look for is a
vent or
blower.
some.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Now, just so folks, if you're out there listening, both Chris and I are huge airplane guys. My father joined the Royal Air Force in the Second World War. He was an American. Chris's dad was in the RAF, and stay tuned for one of our future shows. I don't know if it's going to be sometime in the next few shows. We're going to be talking exclusively about RAF
Airfields.
airfields, and I think
Yeah.
you're going to find it pretty dang compelling. We've talked a little bit about it, but
it might have to run more than one episode
yeah.
because there's so much going on.
And you've written two incredible books about that, but I don't want to get
Three
to
books.
three. Sorry, of course. I've got one that's signed by you.
How dare you? 3 books.
So sorry. So, but stay tuned because that's going to be one hell of a show when we start talking about the haunted RAF airfields because Chris has got some great stories. Hey, here's a new thing that I've really also found to be helpful, and that are the ghost boxes. And this is a Ghost Stop S box, spirit box, out of Ghost Stop out of Kissimmee, Florida. And this is your typical PSB7,
Mm-hmm.
the younger version of what you had, the 11.
I've got
And
both. But
oh, you've got both? Okay.
yeah.
And the whole theory behind that, folks, and I'm going to tell you my opinion. This is just my humble opinion. This is where I think we're going to get the biggest breakthrough evidentiary wise on contact with the other side. And what it does is it uses radio frequencies. As most of you know, EVPs, hearing voices that you can't hear, but you can hear in a recorder, it all has to do with frequency and vibration.
Everything does.
Everything does. And these two pieces of equipment will scan radio frequencies really, really quickly, either forward or backwards. And the whole idea is you're going to catch the other side trying to contact you in between the frequency changes. And what we do is, and I don't know if you're familiar with this, Chris, but we'll do what we call active listening, or they also call it the something. Oh, I can't think of the other name, the more common nickname for it. But basically, one person will take one of these types of devices and plug headset into it and sit away from it, cover their ears with the headsets so they can't hear the questions. And then somebody else will be conducting basically an EVP session, and the person that had the headphones connected to the spirit box will just say the words they hear.
Mm-hmm.
And we've had some really, really cool stuff come out where the listener, in fact, it happened with me the other night in the women's club. You'll spit out the word, and you don't realize it's an answer to a question. We've had some pretty interesting results on that.
The only thing I'll say about that is it's not a two-way communication tool.
No, it's not.
It does work. Don't get me wrong, it does work. But if you're just using it as a two-way communication, it's going past so fast that you're just making an instant guess at what you've heard.
That's
you're only getting at best a 20th of what's going on.
I'll agree, because when I was doing it the other night, I was catching maybe every fifth word, but some of the words are very compelling. But I'll tell you what really, because once again, being a cop, I was very suspicious when I first saw this concept come out. But I became more open to it. This is about 2.5 years ago now. We were in the old school in Fellsmere, and somebody brought in one of these types of pieces of equipment, and I was going to go and listen because I thought this was a bunch of bull. So we're sitting in there, we're talking in a room we call the choir room, and there was a group of us in there, and we asked the question, how many are in here? And the answer was 7.
Mm-hmm.
And there was 7 people in there. How many's in here, including you? And the dang thing said 8. Okay, could be, coincidence. Can you tell any of the names of the folks that are in here? And it gave some names. Some were correct, some weren't. So I'm sitting back all cocky and everything, saying, this is just all coincidence, because it's scanning radio frequencies. So you'd literally hear radio stations on occasion, right? You've heard it on your PS11.
Well, we don't get almost anything on the AM band over here.
Because you don't have, that's true, yeah.
So I always set it to AM. So
okay.
Which is my way of obviating what you're talking about.
Okay. And and there's another way to do it too. You could use a Faraday bag or Faraday cage.
They don't like that.
No, they don't. But you know what I have found out, and I found out through study, kind of getting off on a sidebar here. ELFs, extremely low frequency, will penetrate a Faraday cage. That's what submarines use to quietly transmit back. It's very slow, but ELF will get through the Faraday cage
It's
a little
it's
bit.
it's not so much that. The last time I did try it on about 3 occasions with a Faraday cage that I'd made, or tin foil around the box, etc., etc., etc. And all I was getting in response to this was, "Take it off. It frightens me. I don't like it."
Oh, really? That's
Yeah,
interesting.
completely and
Well,
utterly the whole thing, until I took it out of the cage,
hmm
and it was working again. They didn't
wow.
like it.
Yeah. Well, getting back to my story here, I kind of got off on a sidebar there. I apologize. But we're sitting in the room, so I'm cocky. I'm okay. Now I'm going to show this thing is a bunch of booey there. So I asked the question, where are we? This dang machine, clear as a bell, there was no mistaking it, clearly said Fellsmere. Now, for those of you out there, and most of you probably don't know where Fellsmere is, but it is a tiny little hole in the wall. Now, if you were listening to one of these and you heard Orlando, Miami, Jacksonville, you could say that's just a radio station. But to say Fellsmere, so I'm a little shocked that I'm sitting there. I wait another minute or two and I said, "Can you tell me again where we're at?" Once again, clear as a bell, Fellsmere. Wow. That's when I,
I can give you a couple of examples which you might like.
okay.
The first one is from my RAF Burn, taken by my friend Jonathan. Burn is just a little bit further south than where you were at Elvington.
Okay.
And he was talking away, and suddenly, running out of things to say, he suddenly said, "What did you do at night to amuse yourselves?" And an instantaneous female voice comes back, "Sex."
Okay then. Well,
The one, I, I've had a number of replies coming back where if I'm on an airfield, I will ask what aircraft was stationed here, and I have got Lancaster and I have got Wellington and things like this come through, but the one which has always stuck in my mind from an airfield, um, I had an Australian pilot who was just standing in front of me, and I was sort of talking to him and saying this and this and this and trying to get him to answer me. And then my friend Mark started up, who's another medium. "My name's Mark. This is Chris. What's your name?" And it comes back, "Doug."
on
Um,
the voice
on
box or the spirit
straight through
box?
the PSB7, clear as
Okay.
day, "Doug." So, "Hello, Doug," and blah 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 blah. And then he wasn't saying anything. And then my friend Mark said, "This is really strange, because I've heard that Australians aren't very backwards in coming forwards with saying things. They speak their mind." And the box erupted. "F off." And that was
Really?
really clear. Yeah. And that was one of the best examples of an Australian on an airfield that I could think of. And it was in an Australian voice.
Wow. Well, so I've and after this thing with me and Fellsmere, and hearing other stories, I've spent some time studying the world of instrumental trans communication, um, whether it be the dead calling on phones. I'm sure you've heard of that before somebody
We've
dies.
got lots of examples
Yeah.
coming up in airfields.
Okay, we'll talk about that a little later. But I've done some studying. I've really come to believe. I mean, folks that have your gift, Evan's gift, you already can make that connection. But guys that are as sensitive as a rock like me, that we need that kind of hard evidence. I believe the world of ITC, instrumental transcommunication, whether it be EVP, something come across the television, computer, whatever. I think that's where we're going to get the biggest breakthrough as far as tangible evidence. That's I just
It's got
I
to be. It's got to be, because unless you can actually have a fully formed apparition appear
mhm,
in front of you, walk down the corridor, and disappear
yeah,
on video,
yeah. Well,
video evidence is fairly useless.
well, what I've saw we said was until the day that Abraham Lincoln pulls up a chair, sits down in front of me, and says, "Okay, Larry, this is what's going on the other side, and I've got a videotape, and I'm filming Abe Lincoln in spirit form, telling me what the other side's all about." Until that day happens, all of it is going to be open to speculation and certainly
Open.
open to yeah. So
Unfortunately, no matter what you do, the best evidence you can get, it might be crystal clear, and people are still going to say, "Oh no, it's rubbish."
oh
No
sure,
matter what you do.
yeah.
So,
But we got to get past that though, buddy. And I know how you get, because people drive you crazy, and maybe, and especially for a cop, sometimes I think I'm a little bit too pie in the sky. But we got to push past those naysayers. We got to push past like that. Like I was saying before, it's like that tank that's been destroyed on the road during the battle. We got to push that tank off the side and drive our armored column through that obstacle until we reach our goal. And
well,
that's what we got to do.
after 45 years, I'm still doing it.
You are, and you
taking
have,
taking hits all the way from people saying, "Oh, it's rubbish. It's this. It's this. It's this," and it's all in your mind. And
they
to
said,
which I answer, of course, is, yeah, of course, it's all in my mind. Doesn't mean to say it's not real.
Mhm. We'll get
And
there. We'll get there. I believe in it.
then I'll tell them all about their grandmother and what their grandmother's saying and how they get annoyed at them with this, that, and the other, and that usually shuts them up.
Well, yeah. I mean, and I don't know if I mentioned in our last discussion. I think we did, and that's where the medium on the telephone talked about my daughter being in uniform. Did we,
Yes,
you know,
yes, I like
what?
that.
Wow, that was unbelievable. I mean, to have this woman say, "You must be proud, following in the family tradition." She's wearing the uniform, and she had no clue. I mean, that was just amazing.
Mhm.
So, but ITC for us slackers that don't have that gift that you and Evan do, that's gonna be where I think we're gonna get it. And these little cool pieces of equipment right here are gonna get us there.
And
Um,
that also brings me on to another thing. That's another one which I'd like to do at some stage, developing mediumship.
yeah,
Little
I would like
steps you
to.
can do to bring out what you've got. Because
Yeah.
I actually believe everyone has these abilities.
Well, a lot of mediums say that. They've said it to me. Hey, Larry, you're a cop. You get your gut instinct, and that's
Yeah,
true. It's
it's
true. I
true.
mean,
You look at someone, you can tell they're lying.
absolutely.
And how can you do that if you haven't got some sort of other sense?
So I guess there may be some
There's hope,
legitimacy.
yeah.
There's hope for me, huh?
Yeah, there's hope,
So
yeah.
yeah. Now, if anybody else, we still got folks listening to us, Ryan.
Yes.
Excellent. Okay, you guys are,
We haven't scared them off yet.
or either that, or I just woke Ryan up. I'm not sure.
Oh, right, that's
Uh,
right.
but if you're out there listening, man, get a hold of us. Get me at ghostguy59@gmail.com. Tell us what you'd like to hear also, because we just love talking about all these things. Um, Okay, just sorry, I got a message. Somebody else listening to us. I just got it across the email. It'd be Patricia. So if Patricia out there listening, thank you for tuning in. But let us know what you'd like to hear too. Your thoughts about some topics you'd like to bring up, or your opinions on what we've been talking about tonight. We want to share. This whole show is not about. Yes, Chris and I just like talking and letting Ryan in on occasion with a word or two, but we want to hear from you guys too. Your thoughts. This is about bringing paranormal unity, bringing us together to reach that common goal. So please give us a holler and share this too. If you haven't yet, subscribe and like, and get your friends to it. Go ahead and share this show. So, hey, got to spread the word, right?
Absolutely. Spread it, spread it, spread it.
So yeah, mediumship. I'd like to do a show on mediumship. And I'd
See if
certainly
you
love
could,
to think so.
if you do that, see if you could get Evan to sit next to you.
Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
then we could have a three-way conversation, a menage a trois. Ooh,
Well, here's the
ooh,
problem. Thursday nights, Tuesday and Thursday nights are his karate nights, so he doesn't get home
Oh,
until late.
he can give that a miss. That's not important.
Oh, okay, okay,
This is important.
okay. Well, we'll see what we can't do maybe over the next few weeks, because I would like to get him out there. Um, we're just about at the end of our show tonight. God, this went quick tonight, didn't it?
It did indeed. So shall we do another hour?
Well, if you want to stay up till 2 a.m. your time,
Well, we can keep going until I just fall asleep in my chair and just say, oh
yeah.
yeah,
Start drooling or whatever.
start drooling away. Yeah.
But you got any final thoughts or comments, my dear
Oh,
friend?
not really. Getting back to the apparitions, I can give
Uh-huh.
you. I mean, as a taster for the RAF show coming up,
Hmm.
one of my very clear experiences happened at a rather famous airfield in Kent.
Oh, that was a Spitfire field
Yes, it was
or Hurricane.
Spitfires.
I thought so. Yeah.
Yes, it was Spitfires, and it's now a museum.
Hmm.
And I was walking around the air, and I'll tell you where it is if you listen to the show. I was walking around the exhibits because they're all in the buildings, and I got through to the next building, which used to be sort of like the headquarters building.
Uh-huh.
Um, and it's little glass cases going throughout the building, and you can't see around the glass case because it's got a dividing hardboard center partition. So you walk around and you walk around and you walk around. And when I got to the end, there was a chap standing there. Now, he was about the same build as Evan, except he was about 5'8" tall.
I was going to say, the guy Evan's size wouldn't fit into the cockpit of a
No,
Spitfire.
but he was about 5'8", but about the same build as Evan.
Right.
Really thin, with an RAF uniform on. He had a pilot officer's single stripe on his sleeve,
Hmm.
and he was standing there with his hand in his pocket, with the tunic over the top, little Clark Gable moustache, real creamed back black hair, and he must have been 18 to 22. That's as old as he was. He was very young, and I thought he was probably a reenactor because he was, in this building, so he's in costume and standing around. I didn't feel any oogie woogie. There was no coldness. There was nothing. I just thought this is another human being.
Uh-huh.
Just asked him, "What are you doing here?" Came back immediately. "Oh, I pop in now and again." "Oh well, cheerio," and he vanished. That's the holy grail of sightings.
Yeah. Wow.
But that gives
Wow.
you that is not uncommon on airfields.
We're gonna. You know what, Chris? We're gonna have to talk about the RAF airfields next week. I think we've piqued a little bit of interest here.
I've got you going on this, have I?
Yeah. Well, me and I. By the way, just to let you know, at RAF Elvington, folks. 609 Squadron was there, and they flew Spits during the Battle of Britain. They were
No,
stationed out of there.
609 wasn't there.
Well, 609 wasn't there.
No,
They were S. Maybe they were
609
in Essex.
is no 609 is County of Yorkshire Squadron. So they've got a
Okay.
Yorkshire Squadron room, but
Okay.
609 wasn't based there.
Okay. Okay. Well, anyway, I'm going to be working soon on a Tiffy, Typhoon. Yeah,
Oh,
with
right.
Tiffy Typhoon. Typhoon, which of course 609 converted to Typhoons later in the
Mhm.
war. So I'm going to actually be working on a 609 squadron.
That's your 148th scale kit.
Of course,
Of
yeah.
course, of course. This is not the time I mentioned my 148 scale Mosquito.
Well, we could talk about my 124 scale.
Except I
Hurricane.
haven't had a chance to do anything. It's still sort of tucked away safe. It
Well,
hasn't come out hiding yet.
yeah. Well, anyway, I just wanted to mention that to you. I got the decals for it, and it made me think of 609 Squadron, where we visited, got to talk to Sergeant Fury. That was
Yes, yeah, that was so peculiar because that came through clear
yeah, it did. It
and
did.
found his grave as well. And he was a
That which
pilot
was
with the squadron, and he was killed in the Battle of Britain.
see, that's what this is all about. You got a name. We did historical
We
research.
got a rank.
We got a rank, and it all fit with the historical research. I mean,
Yep.
that's what this is all about, and probably this is a perfect way to end our time tonight because I want to get into this RAF stuff. I think we may have to do it next week, so excuse me, I think we're stuck. We're going to do RAF airfields next week.
So we'll have to do a pre-broadcast meeting of what we want to talk about.
Yeah,
because I'm gonna have to have all the information at my fingertips for you because
Yeah,
you're going to
we'll
ask
talk.
me all these questions and I won't be able to answer them.
Oh, you
And
better answer.
I'll look an absolute arse because I won't
I
be able to answer anything.
I want answers, pal.
Yeah, I
So
know what you're like. Yeah, and then if I don't do it, you out will come the rubber cosh, won't it? The typical police.
at any rate, folks, everybody out there, appreciate you watching tonight, joining us. We have a ball doing this, and we're very glad that you've joined us. Spread the word. This is the place to talk about all things paranormal. And as much as we like to talk, we want to hear from you. So like us, subscribe, pass the word on. Let's all talk. Let's really make this the foundation for paranormal unity throughout the entire field. So thanks for listening tonight. Ryan, great job. Appreciate. Got anything you want to add, Ryan? You've been really quiet tonight. Are you asleep? Hello,
No, he's just a
Ryan.
man of very few words.
Yeah, but even too, I hope he's still. I still see him on there. So yeah, now I can hear you. Yeah. Okay, now I can hear you.
Oh.
No, nothing to add.
No.
Oh,
I thought you were sleeping
nope.
or something.
No,
Yep.
I
No.
guess my thing wasn't
Nope.
working.
Yep. Nope. Nope. Yep.
All right, folks. We'll join us next Thursday, 7 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, midnight if you're in County Durham, England. But please join us next week for when we talk about the ghosts of the RAF at haunted RAF airfields. But we also might throw in an RAF training field right here in Florida.
I can even do you USAF ghosts over here. Lots
Well,
of them.
we'll do the American airfields another time.
Excellent. And the
We'll do,
Canadians
and the
and the
Canadians.
Australians and the
Australia.
Poles.
Yeah, we talked about the free French tonight too.
I
So
see. Each one of these is a separate episode.
yeah, you got a great story about a Polish Wellington squadron, Wellington that went down.
I've got all sorts.
Yeah. So at any rate, we'll save that for next time, folks. Thanks for watching. Thanks for tuning in. Spread the word. Let's make this thing grow. Thanks for your time. And until next week, we'll see all of you on the other side. Cheerio.
Bye for now.